evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the program, FutureSCAPE session number 7. Thank you very much for joining in such a large number today. I really appreciate that. With me, of course, we have esteemed members with us, and you can see them on the screen. We have engineer Michael Cards, who is a founder along with me on MN Exports Private Limited, where we run such kind of programs under ESGPro Master Institute banner. With me also we have today Rohan Pandya and Kapitra Kanan Priyan, and of course welcome Purnima Jalilalji as well, part of the team. Now we are starting with session number 7, and this session specifically is for Circularity for Develop India 2047. We want to position circular economy as a backbone of Indian sustainable growth. Today all our speaker will be trying to establish that facts with lot of example. Now, a developed India, as you know, will not be built on linear consumption. Circularity is no longer a policy which we are following, it's an infrastructure ingrained in Indian civilization. Today, we are world largest country which per capita basis is emitting waste. But problem is we are not recycling those really well. There we are lacking, and those statistics we want to discuss with you today. Before I introduce my esteemed speaker, Kapitra Kanan Priyan. Yes. Now, the paradigm shift which is happening from linear model to circular model is not new. It has been happening for decades now, even in India, when we introduced 3R, which has now slowly grown to 9Rs, where we are talking about from vulnerable import-dependent supply chains to domestic resource security. We are talking about depreciating asset to standard capital to waste, which streams converted to untapped balance sheet and high exposure or escalatory risk, regulatory risk, which we are facing. Early mover advantage defining sector and benchmark. This is what the now, if you look into heavy industry today, they are decoupling from, specifically from financial side to becoming a circularly financial dependent side. Now, the financial ROI here, which has increased from 18% to 22%, the electric arc furnaces investment specifically saves here 250 tons or USD per tons versus virgin ore which we use, and that's decoupling growth we are talking about in emissions. We are also talking about climate impact, which is 50 to 20% lower emissions per ton today if you are using a circular economy based input in the heavy industry compared to India growth, which is at 7% right now. Now, scalability is the highest if we go circular economy way rather than normal. Also, we can't forget the critical mineral requirement in the transition, specifically ESG transition, where 20 to 28% IRR we are seeing for battery recycling facility. We are approving and funding those kind of company left, right and center. Even our organization M&A Experts is involved in few of those. We are helping climate impact and scalability in this sector too. As you can see, Niti Aayog is focusing there. Don't forget, packaging and rethinking of fossil fuel derivatives is another area where ROI is limited, which is 12 to 18% reduction in raw material cost. Recycling infrastructure payback is very short, which is 3 to 4 year itself. So circular model directly cut off virgin plastic demand in this industry by 20 to 30%. Again, scalability is massive. Don't forget the global regulatory engine, which is pushing this initiative even in India. And of course, when India wants to become developed with being sustainable, as our Prime Minister says all the time, BRSR and EPR is going to be at the core of it. Don't forget the double materiality radar here, which now even BRSR, people who are reporting with BRSR using it, they are shifting from financial materiality to impact materiality. Remember, capital filtration, the end of greenwashing basically, which we are talking about, starts with being true to label. Second gate here is a screen to the green, and walk the talk is the last one. Now, before we go any further, the solution is not limited here. Solution is enormous. What I will be doing, I will be introducing my team member, the fellow speaker, Kapitra Kananpriyan, who is going to share her, a story in West Management, and that will be quite interesting to read. I will be introducing her very soon after her speech. Kapitra, why don't you take over now? You are on mute, Kapitra.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Nice to have all of you here join us in this very, very crucial conversation which we're going to have. There is so much to say, so I'll just take a short time introducing myself before we go on the core subject. I've been someone who has been born and brought up in Delhi. And very soon in life, right in school, I thought I'll be an entrepreneur. And it's been a long journey from there. And, right from doing entrepreneurship from Delhi University with economics, I always wanted to have my focus on education and environment. It was always there, part of the plan. But it's just that I didn't know where, because it's such a vast area, both education and environment. And but as I think as we go along, if, our intention is right, if our purpose is true, I think we fall into the right place, and that's where waste management came into the picture. Coming and settling in Navi Mumbai around 15 years back, and looking at the beautiful terrain here, which is full of wetlands and mangroves, and we are visited by some of the most beautiful birds in the world. This became my home, where I set up my family. But then as the years grew, and as the years went by, I saw how it was destroyed, and it was destroyed by one thing, which is called waste, kachra, garbage, kuda. These are the words we actually use in our real life, and that's the whole reason I went into, I picked up waste management, which is very tough. It's a very different space to be, and a lot of people question me about it. Why this space? So this is the simple answer I gave. This is my home. Just like our home planet, this is my little home, Navi Mumbai, and I wanted to pick waste and work on it. So it's like, as Vivek just introduced one slide which said, walk the talk. I just wanted to walk the talk. I didn't just want to have words. I've been an activist all my life. My family comes from that kind of upbringing. But then it's not just words. It's not just going and striking somewhere or fighting somewhere. It's about actually action. It's climate action. And that's why my topic today is, climate action by closing the loop on waste. So I'll be going ahead with that whenever Vivek tells me.
Yeah, please go ahead with sharing your screen right away.
And I'll go ahead with it. Yeah.
I will introduce you after this.
Sure. So as I said, my session today is about climate action by closing the loop on waste. It's, as I said, it's been a long journey. Sometimes I didn't know what I'm doing. I was suddenly starting working on e-waste. And then I went ahead and started working with wet waste. And then going ahead, I started working with milk bags. And then, I started picking these things one by one. And I'll let you know why I did that. So let's look at the agenda now. The agenda for today, which I'll be covering, is the seventh resource. We'll come to know what the seventh resource is. And the theme for this year's Earth Day, which just kind of went by, which was on 22nd of April, was our planet, our planet. So it's our power, the planet. And how do we use this power? The seventh resource, shifting perspective. The seventh resource, life cycle ideology. The three main goals of circular economy, which is very different from the 6 principles of circular economy. And I kind of, divided this into, separated this into the micro level work, which happens at an individual level, and the community engagement level work, which happens at a macro level in Navi Mumbai. As I said, I'll be focusing more on Navi Mumbai. My whole work is kind of here. Overt's model of change 1, the milk bag project, the model of change 2, which is the microclimate home project, which is the dry waste utility products. Also coming to the simplicity, how we can bring simplicity into all these big problems we have. And that's it. So let's go along. So here we have mountains of problems, and these problems are in the city and outside the city. So if let it be Gazipur kind of a landfill in Delhi, or let it be our Turbe landfill in Navi Mumbai, or our Kanjur Marg, which is also now told to be one of the most giving the most emissions in terms of the landfills. It's recently been covered in the news. So everything is around our city. We are sitting in the middle of the city, and we are actually having these emissions from garbage mounds and landfills and mountains of waste, which are just in the city or outside the city on the outskirts. And what are we thinking? Why would the emission level, why would the pollution level not go up? Now, India generates more than 62 million tons of municipal solid waste. Now, if we tell this to an individual, we will never be able to fathom, how much this is. We are talking about tons of garbage here, and it's a mixed garbage. It's a solid mix. It's like plastic mixing with wet waste. It will be vegetable scraps or fruit scraps. It could be anything, right from packets of biscuits, or it could be anything which is also human kind of solid waste, and everything gets mixed up here. And I'll come to it later on, how we also do cleanliness drives and try to understand one by one all these waste. So all of this is getting dumped in our landfills, and there is a bandwidth issue. There was always a bandwidth issue, and I won't complain. Let's not complain that the government is not doing this or that. I won't come to that at all. Everybody is doing their part. We as individuals and community have to do our part. That's my take. And going ahead, the kind of environmental hazard is not just the pollution. It's not just the land pollution. It's also the water pollution. Like, the leachate level, that is when these garbages mix up, and the kind of juice that gets made. There's so much of monsoon in Mumbai, right? We have almost 5 to 6 months of monsoon. So everything that gets mixed up goes underground, and it kind of goes and mixes it with the underground water. So the kind of leachate level is something, who is checking? Hardly anyone is checking the leachate levels, because, nobody understands that just like, AQI, there is a leachate quality index also, which needs to be checked. But nobody has the time, or nobody has the consistency of checking this. So there's a lot to do over here, and the kind of quantity of garbage which is going to increase in the coming time, if we don't do something to it to stop the kind of consumption we have, is unthinkable of. So let me go on. In terms of the seventh resource, the global recycling agencies have put a name to the waste, the kachra or the kuda we have been thinking of. And, rather than terming it as waste, they called it the seventh resource. So just like 7 resources, which is, the major resources we talk about, right? We talk about so many resources that, it is these resources which are there, which is water, air, oil, natural gas, coal, mineral, right? We are talking about, these waste as the biggest resource, right? Now, in terms of what we call our commitment to nature, right? So when I work with individuals or community, it becomes more into stewardship. What do we have commitment with nature? It's something which comes from our purpose, in our attention, our soul, that we need to work on it. Okay. So in terms of that, when we look at it, we look at 2 pillars which are there, which is pillar 1, which is resilience and institutional continuity. Okay. This is something that once you have understood that you are part of the problem, you need to go ahead and you have to become the solution too. So when you become the solution, you will actually get all the answers to it. And I can give you the examples of how we got these answers. Environmental action is local and decentralized, number 1, in terms of pillar 1. Number 2, the economics, education, and conservation, it outlasts any political cycle. So let's not blame any political party about this. Everybody will come and go. Who stays are the citizens. So let us move together and let's achieve some kind of a result for our circular economy. Number 2, shared interests, the pillar 2, which is the shared interest and interconnected outcomes which are there. We know that all this pollution, all this emissions from the landfills are causing us so many issues. It's causing us asthma. It's causing us, so many illness which are non-communicable diseases. There are a lot of livelihoods attached to, places where the garbage is dumped, which is near the river sides or the lake sides, where there are fishermen. There's a Koli community which is in Mumbai, which also gets affected by everything which is happening in terms of this garbage. And, we really need to understand that even when firefighters go, and during the summer times when the landfill is completely burning out, it's actually started burning just a month back itself, even when the summer was not fully in Turbe, in Navi Mumbai. And firefighters are going and fighting it out. So there's a lot of livelihood connected, a lot of health issues connected with these things. In terms of the spirituality and everything, I think let's pick up things like while we have Ganesh Chaturthi, and Ganpatis are being immersed in the sea, what happens to these statues? Let it be the POP statues, or let it be anything made even out of textiles, they are making it. And some are making it out of course, mud and sand, which is eco-friendly materials. But whatever it is goes and gets stuck in mangroves. And we find them during our cleanliness drives. So in terms of, let us look at it, these all spiritual activities, let us look at it from what I call in Hindi, man se shraddha honi chahiye. It's not that it should be found in an idol or something, right? It should be in your mind, in your soul, that you have the shraddha towards a higher entity. So in terms of also quality of life, like for example, let it be Delhi, where children are supposed to not go to the parks or gardens or go to the school also, where holidays are given just because the pollution levels are high. Or questions like, what fish should my kid eat during this season? And there are spaces where I go and find out that this is the time when breeding is happening and we shouldn't have this kind of a fish. So there's so many things, and actually things are available. People are working on this, and we can find out these things. So these are two pillars which are like, powerful tools and skills which we can use to understand how, we can save our, not save our planet, because I think that also it becomes very egoistic in nature. But, Earth came from that kind of a, kind of a reasoning that, let's not be entitled, but then, we owe it to Earth because it's given us so much that we can't repay it ever, actually. So going ahead, the seventh resource in terms of the shifting perspective. So when I tell people, or when we are having conversations, when there are meetups which are happening, when there are webinars, anything, right? So I tell them that, after water, air, oil, natural gas, coal, and mineral, the seventh resource, which is our kachra, is something which we need to save from getting mixed up. So segregation becomes so important at this point of time, that we need to segregate the waste right from the start, right at our doorsteps itself. So let it be, anything in terms of these resources, and on which humanity is completely dependent. So, as in terms of the power our spaces have, or the construction that happens, the materials we use for it, the manufacturing of any goods, creation of clothes, the energy which goes into it, in terms of the mobility, and the quench we have in terms of our thirst. I mean, water in terms of the fresh water availability, and the water which is available for irrigation or any other things. There is a definite kind of a limit to these things. It's not infinite, it is finite. And that needs to be grilled into every one of us, that we are rapidly running out of these resources. And that's why the seventh resource somehow can help us in terms of managing our lifestyle. Seventh resource in terms of the lifestyle ideology, I won't gather on this much. This was already explained by Vivek in terms of the circular economy to the from linear economy to the circular economy. Because right from, just saying that we'll make something and, we'll manufacture it, and then, it will be kind of disposed of, so just use it and throw it kind of attitude. We have to go into, at the right from the start itself, what is the design, what goes into the design, and how do we kind of extend the lifetime of the design, and how can it be reused or repaired. The 9 R's come into the function here. In terms of the 3 goals of the circular economy, if we actually look into it. One is, of course, the design part. Next is to keep the products in, kind of a longer use in terms of the materials, and also the regenerate natural system part. So these are the three main goals. And when we look at individuals, when I work with individuals on this part, there's a lot of things which are put into place in terms of localization perspective. What do you get in the local market that you can use, rather than going for something which which people say that which comes from a longer distance, from a longer transport utility. What to do to develop a hyper local attitude, right? So I'm someone who has deleted kind of Zomato, any other kind of a quick delivery meal kind of a app from my mobile. I want to go for hyper local. So my something which is available locally becomes very important for me. Which people, entrepreneurs who are locally working, become very important to me. In terms of the participatory culture, what is your culture in your local space that can be helpful in creating this kind of attitude? The 9 R's, of course, let it be refuse, rethink, reduce, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, recycle, and in fact, the 10th one, which is the rot, that is the wet waste, where you let it rot so that it becomes soil again. But that's something we won't touch today. The civic body, the NGOs, the environmental stewardship, the Rotary clubs, the environment clubs, everyone, this is something I've used at individual and community level, both. A lot of volunteering and internship, which can come to use here, because we're also driving the youth and the young minds. A lot of intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, which helps in bringing things together. And also the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you look at the basic needs, which is you need clean air or clean water, the good soil, earth. What do you want that to happen? Is it something that you need to, you want to make sure it's there for a longer time with you? That's something you have to look at. The 6 core principles, which is at macro level, I'll just touch these points: the system thinking, resource management, value creation, resource tracking, value sharing, and ecosystem resilience. All of this are brought to light through the projects we have done, like the 2 projects I'll be kind of showing it to you on screen. And going ahead, when I talk about the 3 main goals of circular economy and individual level things, in terms of collaborating with organizations like Boonj, or the textile recovery facility, which is in Belapur, or Bisleri's Bottle for Change project, or the Regenerate Natural System. This collaboration is with Mangrove Marshals, which means every Sunday at Vashi Sagar Vihar to clean the mangroves, because we see so many things there. In fact, every time I see something there while doing the cleanliness drive, we pick it one by one and say that, this is something we need to work on in the community, and say that this is, for example, milk bags, this is virgin plastic. This is, we get thermometers, we get, so many glasses. There's everything we put together. We get shoes, we get school bags. When we clean up the system, we get so many things, and we try to see how do we look at each of these products and make sure that we create awareness among people that, this is something you need to make sure, either you reduce this or you are refusing this. So that's how we go ahead with our individual level, micro level work, and contemplate a lot of things in terms of, how to bring the consumption down. In terms of the community engagement level work, there's a lot of work which has happened. If you see, we are having meetings with different NGOs, and these are some coverages which I just put in here. We also collaborated with Mission Mumbai, where we make sure that seeds are not going into dustbins, because seeds are something which can be grown into little sprouts and plants, and they can be grown. And there's a big, kind of there's a big land which has been it has come together, where they have been growing these mango plants also. So there is proof that all these things are happening. It's not words, it is actually happening on ground. And going ahead, this is the first model of change, which is the milk bag project. And we started this in around 2022 something, and it was one of the most challenging projects. Now, virgin plastic is something which is, which is known to be the most expensive plastic, and also, the microns are such that, it can be made into so many good products. And it was like, I mean, I tell it's a crime to put milk bags in a dustbin, actually. And, it's been very challenging. And I was told that will be challenging. This is a replication model, which was, started by 3 women in South Mumbai. And I replicated this in Navi Mumbai. And I never thought I will reach this number, though it's nothing as compared to tons of waste which otherwise in dry waste get collected. But as he said, when I look at every little waste, so when I look at only at milk bags, 150,000 bags, like, it was a huge number. And then it's still continuing. A lot of people who are now joining us in understanding that let's not throw the milk bags into the dustbin. In terms of model of change too, this is another project where dry waste gets collected from home to home. It's a home-to-home collection happening only in Navi Mumbai. The collaborating partner is FutureSCAPE Sanstha, which is the rag pickers community of Mumbai, the informal sector. And there is a lot of work happened here over the last at least 2 years now. And the best part of this is there's so much of economic gain, which is for the FutureSCAPE Sanstha. Whatever money, whatever income comes out of the selling of the recycling products, that goes into the education of the children of the rag pickers, number one. Number two, it goes into their health insurance. Number three, it goes into small bank loans they can take to start their own business. Number four, it also goes into other, little vocational training things and everything, a saving part and all that. Now, the best part is home to home. Who does home to home? And we are getting home to home services. I tell people, why don't you take it? And still we get a no most of the time, saying we don't have time for this. But the fight is on. It is going on in terms of so much of things that can be done just by segregating your waste and sending it for recycling. And in terms of the dry waste to utility products, so much can be made. So if you look at the dry waste, there are benches which are getting made. From the milk bags, there are buckets, dustbins. There is this company in Delhi which makes flower pots out of it. There are irrigation pipes which are also made. Something which is converted into so many products which are as good to use and then can go again into recycling. So my answer to any problem is that it's very simple. You just have to be hyper local. Look at organizations, collaborations with any groups or any NGOs or any units which are functioning at the 3 kilometers, 5, 7, 10 kilometer radius, and try to do even 15 kilometer radius, and try to do whatever you can. Because I never felt that I have to set up something on my own. I always felt the civic body is there, NMMC is there. There are the NGOs. There are other units which are willing to volunteer, or there are youth which are willing to intern, and we will use them, and we will simply put everything together through that. And that's what I did. This is just a quote by E.F. Schumacher, that any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex, even violent, and takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. And this quote is just one of the, kind of inspiration I have. There are so many other people I take inspiration from. A lot of local future stuff which is there by other people which I follow, and it's just that we just follow. So that's from me. You can ask any questions in case there are any.
Thank you very much, Kapitra. Question we are going to take after everybody's discussion.
Sure. Thank
Really
you.
interesting and intriguing insights. Really appreciate that. And yes, it has to start maybe at the end of the life cycle of any product, and that is West is all about. Thank you. Let me now introduce all the speakers quickly. So of course, myself, Vivek Jas Suman, I will be a moderator of this call, also asking some questions with our team members. I look after sustainability strategy and climate policy as ESGPro Master Institute with green financing and ESG integration for startup as well as for large companies. We also work in carbon market, ecosystem development, CCTS system, which has been recently introduced. We have also covered a free program there. Please go ahead and watch out on our YouTube channel if you are interested on specifically CCTS market. How West can be generated into gold. Yeah, so today we are talking about West to Best, and that's what Kapitra Kaniparna Sub House. Her picture could not come, but you are seeing her on live on the screen. Driven by purpose, powerful by strategy, and focused on impact. That's what her definition of her lifestyle is. She is built several outcome-driven communication framework across vertical. You met her now. She led a stakeholder engagement on several photographs, which we have seen today with measurable strategic outcome in best industry. She also has strengthened several brand positioning through impactful messaging and strategy and delivered consistent creation with quality focus. That's what Kapitha Kanan Priyan is known for, founder and program head of Earth. Now I'm going to introduce, of course, Rohan Pandey. I don't know, her photo is also missing. But it may be, we have just shown him his photograph. He's a consultant in carbon markets, domestic and international both, quite driven and focused on translating climate ambitions into measurable impact. That's what he's known for. Of course, his key area of expertise, you can meet him after this program as well for carbon market expertise, specialized article in 6 mechanism, 6.2, 6.4, 6.8, where he specializes in and driving net zero and decarbonization strategy exactly like us, focused on ESG and climate finance solutions. That's what Rohan Pandya is. So let me welcome Rohan. Rohan, why don't you take the stage before Michael comes in? Michael Katz will be the last speaker, and then we will start the question answer session. So everyone who has question for Kapitra, Rohan, please note it down or put it in our YouTube channel. You can go ahead and start interacting. And anybody who needs, we are giving some goodies today, specifically a white paper on West Energy, that how circularity can become a center stage in develop India for Viksit Bharat 2047. So that white paper is available for everybody access. Now, let me invite Rohan. Rohan, please start sharing your screen and go ahead.
So first of all, good evening to all who have joined us virtually. And thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction. Yeah, so, okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is very much visible. Let me ask to YouTube people if they are able to see it, because sometimes there is a delay and lag. There are several people who have joined on YouTube. So people on YouTube, if you are able to see Rohan Pandya and Rohan Pandya's screen, please go ahead and put a thumbs up or say yes in the chat box. Yes. A lot of people, by the way, Kapitra is talking about you. Proud to hear you, ma'am, and your work is fantastic. People are talking about informal sector, 95% contribution is happening. We are going to take all the messages from there and come and speak. Rohan, people are giving a thumbs up. You are audible and visible.
Okay, yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here, and wonderful session by Ms. Kapitra. It was a wonderful session, and your explanation about the seventh resource was wonderful. So today I'm here to challenge the common sustainability narrative, as in the constant adaptation and green tech swap is true progress, is what I am hearing. Wherever I go, I hear this. You have to constantly adapt to the climate change, and the green tech swaps is equals to progress. Now, true sustainability isn't about flexibility. It's about building a system that lasts, that reduces cost, and naturally that aligns yourself with circularity. That is the true understanding of sustainability, is what I feel. So let's start with this session, the illusion of green adaptation, why real sustainability requires foundation and not flexibility. Yes. So the illusion, the swapping inputs is equals to fixing system, is what people think right now. That once you swap the systems, you have fixed the system. You have put in renewables, you have put in solar, panels, you have put in windmills, you have optimized your grid integration and all, and eventually you have fixed the system. Is it so? So we celebrate this green tech adaptation, but ignore the basic operational efficiency of it. So adaptation without foundation just shifts your problem to downstream, right? Your sustainability should be future, it should not be your future liability. It has to be designed into the system from day one. So here, if you say that once you have put in some solar or wind farms, right? And after 20 or 25 years, do we have a plan for that? Do we have a proper plan to decommission it? There are plans into the system right now. We do have plans into the system, but are they the correct plan for it? No, it's not, right? The wind turbines, the blades that are developed, it costs huge right now. And at the end of life, if you are making furnitures out of it, I don't think that is the correct usage of it. So there has to be some plan. Your primary plan should be there, secondary plan should be there, tertiary plan should be there, and eventually end of life goal is to be there. So if your operations are inefficient, changing the fuel, changing the input is not sufficient. That will not give you the right output of it, right? So the philosophy behind is, so yes, so the adaptation versus the foundation reality, what I'm speaking about. So the method should be redesigning your structural architect rather than just swapping your inputs. That should be your approach. The method should be, systems should be built to endure and not to become constant or reactive to change. That is not how sustainability should be. The operations should classify waste as an input and not as an inevitable your byproduct, right? And the matrix, the methodologies which are used should not be some bureaucratic mandates that a company has to do, and so they are doing. It has to be used as a diagnostic tools that a company can use and eventually design a system that can endure, right? That is the basic idea of this thing. So the philosophy here is, instead of chasing the trends, we must design for longevity, right? Circularity isn't an add-on. It constrains that drives innovation, right? So when a system is efficient, it becomes cost effective, and eventually you'll achieve sustainability. So you cannot say that when you design a system, you cannot say that it will adapt to some changes after say 5 years. I'll adapt to the certain change. No, that's not sustainability. Sustainability means that you are designing a system that can endure, that can work up till 20 years, 50 years, 40 years. The plan should be like that. That your system, your resources should be developed till that stage of their life. So once you optimize that design, eventually you will reduce the cost and the byproduct will be naturally sustainability, right? So the rule of thumb should be, if a solution doesn't break even, then the design is incomplete and you will have to work on that design. First, you have to get a break even for the solution that you have designed. That will eventually be the completed design of sustainability and circularity around. So the waste, first of all, the waste should be your input. That has to be the plan. And designing a system where you have proper resource mapping of primary, secondary, and tertiary, and to the end of its life. That should be the plan, and that should be the design strategies of how we can achieve this thing. So how to get around this thing? How can we do this? All these things. What I've spoken about, how to achieve these things, right? So there's always this thing where the right take is not that important. The right question that you ask is way more important than swapping your inputs, than using some right text for that particular thing, right? So instead of asking how do I make this component more greener, it is always necessary first you ask whether you require this component in your system or not. That should be the first question that should come into your mind, and then eventually you should go to that level where you can say that, okay, now my system is optimized, my design is optimized, and now I'll switch it to some greener the greener inputs to it. Otherwise, what you are doing, you are just swapping your inputs, you're just putting into green uh, inputs to it, and after, say, suppose 10 years, 20 years, that will again end up in landfills or waste, right? And we don't know how are we going to use those wastes as compared to the production capacities or investments which we are putting it right now in developing this system, right? So the guiding principle should be function first, delivery second, and the material should be at last. That should be your guiding principle for this. So how to do this thing, I've just taken a small case study on how can we achieve this thing, how the right question can give you such a great impact, right? So I've taken a simple case study of this gripper pen, which we all must have used. So in my school days, I used to use this as a great weapon for pen fight, right? Oh, I think so all of us have used this thing, but at that time I was not aware of how this could end up at the end of its life. Now when I'm studying this, I realize that yes, it's a great impact that it creates. So the problem which I identified over here is the traditional design relies on the polypropylene barrel with a TPE rubber gripper, which is put into this design. Right. The consequences of this design is that it's a multi-material approach which requires an extra assembly and extra energy input to just simply put this rubber into the pen. Right now, what is the function of this gripper in this particular pen? Right, you have to ask that question instead of asking how do I make this rubber more greener, or how do I make this rubber, the assembly line more greener? I asked a simple question, whether do we require this rubber or not? Just a simple question, right? So that changes your solution. That changes how you look to this structural designing of such things, right? So just by asking the right question, I'll show you the impact it makes, right? So I just asked this question. We don't look for a greener rubber. We eliminate the rubber entirely. Just making a small change into the design itself. In the barrel itself, you use some design solutions like variable wall thickness and putting in some micro textured geometrical design to it. It serves the purpose of holding it properly and comfort for a company, for a user, right? It gives the comfort for the user to hold it, and it gives the grip, which was the function of the gripper, the rubber gripper. Now, once you eliminate that rubber gripper, it becomes more recyclable, right? Because it's a mono material. You don't require any other whole system to detach it from the pen itself, right? So you don't require some another say suppose whole assembly line. And the Ms. Kapitra rightly said that segregation is something which is a huge problem, right? So using the such designs in monomaterials itself can reduce so much of waste, right? So these are the some changes that you can apply to and eventually find what sustainability can bring in, what sustainability can achieve you through this. So this small change in your design can bring down up to 16.7% of material use. 71% of the production waste can be reduced by just eliminating this rubber, which eventually brings this particular pen up to 90% of recyclability, right? Which is a great, huge achievement in this thing. And eventually, of course, cost will be saved around this much, 2.46 crore annual savings is what is being projected. Just by simple change in your design. We haven't deviated ourselves from the function of it, just a thought process that no, I don't need a greener rubber. I need to check whether that rubber is required for the system or not. This case study which I'm presenting right now is to show you how asking a right question can achieve such a great impact to this. The solutions can be many for this particular problem, right? But asking a right question can bring you the right solution. Right? So that is the basic idea of this particular case study. So good design pays for itself in and instantly. That's for sure. So of course, how do we do all these things? Currently, there's a lot of talks around the world about ESG, BRSR, your GHG calculation, your LCA, your sustainability reports, even for that sake, carbon markets, carbon trading. So I feel these are some of the tools that the company should use to eventually achieve these goals. This should not be your arbitrary end goals. Your ESG reporting is not your end goal that a company has to achieve just because they have been mandated to do this ESG and so they are doing it. That should not be the motto. Your motto should be use these tools, use ESG, use SR, use GHG calculation as your diagnostic tools, measure what it actually matters, optimize what's broken, and then scale what works, right? So don't use these tools for just the sake of mandates. BRSR, I understand it's a mandate by India, and so the companies are doing it. But we have done a lot of BRSR. We know how companies can use this data and how do they report themselves, right? Still, we are using standards of US or UK or Europe. Indian standards are still under development stages, right? So when we use some emission factors of those countries, are we truly reducing our emissions? Are we truly reporting what actually that particular company is doing? No, we are not, right? So these are some of the tools which we have to use to eventually achieve the goal of enduring your system for a long period of time. That should be the goal. Net zero should be your goal. Circularity should be your goal. This should not be your goal. This is just your tools to achieve that particular goal. So that is the idea over here, which I want to speak around. So we all know about 9 Rs around the circular frameworks, right? But I give you only three letters: REC, REC, which is retain, extend, and circulate. If you do only these three things, trust me, you will achieve the potential of sustainability, what we are speaking right now. Circularity gives you this by achieving these three letters, these three principles of retain, extend, and circulate. You can achieve the circularity very easily. So by retain, I want to say that use the existing asset and material fully before procuring something new. Okay, currently you are using something which emits, say, suppose 10 tons of CO2 or 20 tons of CO2, or eventually will end up into the landfills. Okay, that's fine. But once you have already procured that material, use it to the end of its life. That is very necessary. If you are procuring some material and not using it to the end of its life, and swapping the inputs and putting up some solar panels, or say suppose putting up some more greener materials to it, then what about the emission that you have already caused into the environment by using this material? So to compensate that, you should retain it to a very long period of time where your resources, what you're currently using, should be retained to, say, suppose 20 years or 40 years or 50 years. That is the motto of retain first. Then you extend whatever new which you are building, that should be designed in a way that it extends your life. So design for sustainability where it becomes easy disassembly, and try to develop more systems which are monomaterials. You design something new which has a plan for its primary stage, its secondary stage, its tertiary stage, and then at the end of its life, put it into the loop again and you circulate. So your factory scraps, your end of life should become your byproduct at the end of its life cycle. So that is the true design as a sustainability perspective, right? That is the true design of circularity, where where your output, your waste becomes your input. That is where you are using the resources which you are already used to the extent the investment what you have put in into the resources, the raw material which you are putting it, the investment which you are doing it. At the end of its life, if you are using it to make some normal products whose value is not that much, then it does not make any sense. So design something that after the end of its life, you can again put it into the loop again. So this is the overall idea of how approach the sustainability or how I approach the circularity. And I believe the industries also should look into this perspective, and this is how I would feel that industries should go ahead with this. So at the last, I just want to say that you don't need bigger budget for this. You just need a smarter design. Sustainability is equals to longevity plus circularity plus efficiency. And again, I'm saying this: true sustainability should not be a system that is designed to adapt to change, but it should be designed in a way that it can survive the change, which is very important. You should design a system that can survive the change till, say, suppose 20 years, 50 years, and 60 years. That is true sustainability, and not something that you should adopt to change the, say, suppose after 5 years you require some changes in it, or a whole new system is required. That is not sustainability. Sustainability is you design something that can eventually help you till 50 years, 60 years. That is true sustainability, and that is where circularity plays a very vital role, very important. So thank you so much. Thank you for this. If anybody wants to connect, there's a QR code on LinkedIn. You can always mail me if there's some questions or beyond that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Rohan. Thank you very much for such a detailed orientation toward how a small design change can bring so much of saving and advantage. 90% of becoming any product, recyclable itself says that it is a part of circular economy, because that's
Sure.
the threshold governments now has fixed, that 10% is the only waste allowed in any production cycle to become
Correct.
renewable. Wonderful, good thoughts. We will be having question answer quickly after introduction and a speech of course, our founding director and board advisor, Middle East engineer Michael Ekarts. He always talks about empowering sustainable business practices rather than, and this is what he stands for today in Middle East. Leading ESG strategy, regional expansion initiative, driving sustainable business transformation, and building ESG framework is what he expertise in, and that's what he does all the time. And he does a lot of enabling of capacity building like these programs and professional ESG training with us. So thank you very much, Engineer Michael Katz. Now Navya will be sharing her screen. Navya, can you start sharing your screen so that Michael can run through his piece as well on West and West management along with circularity. Let's listen in to Michael Ekarts. Yes, Michael, she is sharing the screen. You can go ahead.
I don't see the screen. Hello? Hello? I don't see the screen. Screen's not there.
There is some trouble, I believe, Navya is facing with her screen.
Can I, I'd like to add a few things
Please
from
go
my
ahead.
esteemed
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Rohan,
Meanwhile, Navya is finding a
I,
solution.
I had some thoughts as an engineer. We look at life cycle costs as we design buildings going into the future. But over the last 15, 20 years, we've now been looking backwards in terms of the materials that we choose. What is the carbon footprint of that particular item? And what is its life cycle? How long will it last? Because what we look at is then how long does it take to recover that carbon cost that was expended to actually make that item? And this becomes critical in our decisions on design. How do we design things in a more natural way and in ways in which, again, the recyclability is inherent in every little aspect? It's very important that we look at this not just in the building components, but in how it's cooled, how it's heated, how it's in all the mechanical, electrical, everything else, and what we can do in the design process. It's all about the design. Rohan, you are absolutely right, but it covers so many different things. It's and it's something that is not being well enough attended to, but it needs to be.
Correct.
All right, welcome everyone to my session 7, a comprehensive review on industrial sustainability. Today, we are focusing on circular economy initiatives in Indian industries. And we'll be examining how circularity is not just a green initiative, but a fundamental shift in India's industrial growth model. Now, what we'll be talking about, our roadmap for today, includes an executive summary of the current landscape, followed by the climate impacts of circularity. We'll dive deep into the highest impact industries, specifically construction, steel, plastics, and review detailed case studies with financial metrics and ROI. We'll conclude with a global policy comparison and strategic recommendations. Let's start with the big picture. By 2050, India's circular economy is projected to reach a staggering $2 trillion valuation and create 10 million new jobs. Environmentally, we are looking at a potential 39% reduction in GHG emissions. That's 22.8 billion tons of CO2. The heavy hitters driving this change are construction, steel, plastics, and textile sectors. Why is circularity our most powerful climate tool? Beyond the 39% GHG reduction, it results in lower energy consumption, significantly reduced methane emissions from landfills, and enhanced biodiversity protection. Crucially, it couples these environmental wins with economic co-benefits, massive cost savings for industries and large-scale job creation. We achieve these reductions through 5 core methods. Reduce, designing for longevity and less material, lighter vehicles. This directly cuts emissions from virgin material extraction. Reuse and remanufacture, refurbishing items like electronics or car parts, which can save up to 80% of energy used in full production. Recycle, turning waste back into raw materials. For example, recycled steel uses 74% less energy than virgin steel. Recover, converting waste to energy or nutrients, such as India's Gobar Dan scheme. This replaces fossil fuels and cuts potential methane emissions. Regenerate, restoring natural systems, turning agriculture from a carbon emitter into a carbon sink. Now, this radar chart illustrates the adoption levels across Indian industries as of 2026. We see high maturity in electronics, 9.0, and textiles, 8.5, largely driven by mature recycling markets and EPR, or extended producer responsibility regulations. Construction, 9.2, is leading the way, while sectors like agriculture, 7.5, and plastics, 8, show significant room for growth. Highest impact industries? Let's look at which Indian industries have the highest potential to reduce greenhouse gases through their circular economy practices. As shown in this chart, the construction and built environment sector leads with a potential 48% GHG reduction. This is because buildings and infrastructure have enormous embodied carbon from cement, steel, and concrete production. Next is steel and metals, with a wide variety but powerful range of 26 to 61% reduction potential. The circular route using scrap steel instead of virgin iron ore can cut energy use by up to 74%, which is why Tata Steel's shift to electric arc furnaces is so significant. Plastic and packaging follows closely, offering 74 to 84 million tons of CO2 equivalent savings annually through recycling and EPR compliance. This is critical because plastics are mostly derived from fossil fuels. Chemicals and textiles come in at 41%, while cement, a major emitter, shows 38% potential through waste heat recovery and alternative fuels. Our climate abatement potential, the key takeaway is clear. Construction and steel deliver the largest absolute climate benefits due to their massive material volumes and high energy intensity. However, plastics and textiles offer quicker wins because of shorter product life cycles and strong policy support through EPR rules. These numbers are just not theoretical. They translate directly into financial savings and competitive advantage, as we will see in the detailed case studies that follow now. Case study 1, construction, Ultratech and ACC. Let's begin our deep dive into real-world examples with the construction and built environment sector. The industry with the highest climate abatement potential. Our first case study looks at Ultratech Cement and ACC. They have successfully implemented waste heat recovery systems, WHRS, and integrated recycled aggregates from construction waste. And I have a personal experience with this, where a university in Canada, in Vancouver, Simon Fraser University, was built 60% by recycled concrete from the streets of the widening of streets in Vancouver City, the sidewalks that were dug up and then ground up and recycled. This was in 1964. The results in India right now, they're saving 1.2 million tons of CO2 annually. Remarkably, 25% of their cement is now produced using alternative fuels or waste materials. This is vital for India's ongoing building boom. Ultratech Cement and AC are part of the Aditya Birla Group, have been pioneers in implementing waste heat recovery systems and using recycled aggregates from construction demolition waste. The results are impressive. They are saving 1.2 million tons of CO2, and 25% of their cement is now produced using alternative fuels. This is particularly significant because India's massive construction boom will add enormous embodied carbon to the coming decades. NITI, Ayog, is now actively promoting the use of recycled aggregates in public procurement to scale this approach worldwide. Construction metrics and ROI. The financial case is just as strong. The financial case for these initiatives equally compelling. Ultratech and ACC are achieving 180 million in annual cost savings. And revenue from the waste tipping fees brings in roughly 45 million a year, with a payback period of less than 3 years. These efforts also align perfectly with green public procurement mandates, giving the companies a strong competitive edge in government and large-scale projects. Steel, Tata Steel. Tata Steel is leading the transition to a circular steel model. They have shifted to 30% plus scrap-based metal production via electric arc furnace route, EAF, and are piloting hydrogen-based technology. This shift results in 15 to 20% lower emissions per ton. Since the steel sector accounts for 7% of India's total waste industrial emissions, these changes are systemic. Tata Steel has set an ambitious target of net zero by 2045. Steel metrics and ROI. Financially, the scrap route is highly efficient, saving 250 to 300 million US dollars per ton compared to virgin ore. Tata Steel's recycling revenue is projected at 1.2 billion for 25-26, with an impressive IRR of 18 to 22% on EAF investments. Case study, textiles. In the textile sector, Arvind Limited and Aditya Birla are focusing on closed-loop denim recycling and fiber-to-fiber projects. They're achieving 30% recycled content in select product lines. Doubling the life of a garment can reduce its emissions by 44%, making these circular models essential for water-intensive industry. On the metrics side, Arvind and Aditya Birla Fashion and Lifestyle have made excellent progress. They have successfully implemented closed-loop denim recycling and achieved 30% recycled content. On the ROI and financial impact side, the results are equally compelling. Products that incorporate higher recycled content are delivering 15 to 20% higher margins compared to conventional lines. The companies are also generating additional revenue from the resale and recycling of diverted textile waste while reducing their dependence on raw virgin materials. Key takeaway is clear. Circular practices in textiles are not just good for environment, they're good for business. Higher margins, lower raw material risk, and stronger brand reputation make these initiatives highly attractive for scaling across industry. Case study 4, electronics and e-waste. Samsung and Atera. E-waste is a critical resource. Atera and Samsung are recovering high-value minerals like cobalt and lithium from used batteries. With India projected to generate 14 million metric tons of e-waste by 2030, this urban mining is essential for securing the supply chain for our EV transition. Metrics and ROI, recovery of critical minerals currently yields 120 million in annual revenue. Atera's plants generate with a 25% EBITDA margin, show an IRR of 20 to 28%, proving that e-waste recycling is a high-growth, high-margin business. Plastics and packaging. Let's now move into one of the most visible and high-volume sectors, plastics and packaging. Hindustan Unilever and Coca-Cola India are leading the way through the India Plastics Pact. Both companies have set ambitious targets to make 100% of their packaging recyclable or reusable. They are making massive investments in both mechanical and chemical recycling infrastructure. The results are already visible. They have significantly increased the percentage of recycled content in their bottles and flexible films. More importantly, their strong commitment to extended producer responsibility, EPR, is actively driving better collection systems and formal recycling infrastructure across the country. Why does this matter for climate change? Plastics are almost entirely derived from fossil fuels. Every ton of virgin plastic waste produced, carries a heavy carbon footprint. By shifting to circular models, these companies are directly cutting demand for new fossil-based plastic, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and preventing plastic waste from ending up in landfills or oceans. This case beautifully illustrates how large FMCG companies can use their scale to create systemic change in the packaging ecosystem. Let's look at the metrics and the finance. And both companies have successfully increased recycled content across their packaging portfolio. This has led to measurable progress toward their 100% recyclable, reusable packaging goals. From a financial perspective, the numbers are very encouraging. Using recycled content has reduced raw material costs by 12 to 18% in several packaging lines. When we look at the broader India Plastics Pact members, the collective annual supply chain savings are reported at approximately $450 million. The investment in recycling infrastructure is also proving to be sound business. Most mechanical and chemical recycling projects are achieving payback periods of 3 to 4 years. The key takeaway here is powerful. Circular economy practices in plastics and packaging are not only essential for meeting regulatory requirements and reducing environmental impact, they are delivering clear cost savings, improving supply chain resilience, and attractive returns on investment. This combination of environmental leadership and strong financial performance is exactly why plastics and packaging is one of the highest impact sectors for circular economy adoption in India. By using recycled content, they've reduced raw material costs by 12 to 15% collectively, PAC members report 450 million in annual supply chain savings. Recycling infrastructure payback 3 to 4 years. Automotive. The automotive sector is moving toward end-of-life vehicle, EALV scrapping, and tire pyrolysis. Recovering oil and carbon black from tires generates $85 million in revenue, while EV battery circularity expected to add $210 million by 2030. Recovering oil and black from tires generates $85 million in revenue, while EV battery circularity is to add 210. Sorry for the repeat. Agriculture. Let's now look at one of the most important and often overlooked sectors, agriculture and food processing. In India, agriculture generates enormous amounts of crop residue and food waste. Open burning of stubble is a major source of air pollution and potent methane emissions. ITC Limited, together with the government's Gobar Dan scheme, is turning this challenge into an opportunity. The initiative focuses on converting crop residue and organic waste into biogas, bio-CNG, and nutrient-rich fertilizer through anaerobic digestion. This circular approach is highly impactful. Instead of burning waste and releasing methane, which is 28 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas, the waste is transformed into clean energy and soil-enhancing products. Gobar Dan projects are already operational across several states, helping farmers manage waste while generating additional income. This is a perfect example of how circular economy principles can bridge rural development, energy security, and climate action in India's vast agricultural sector. Finally, in agriculture, the Gobar Dan scheme turns crop residue into biogas. This generates $120 million in revenue from energy sales and carbon credits while boosting farmer income by up to 15%. These projects pay back in just 2 to 3 years. Let's examine the metrics and financial returns of these initiatives. On the performance side, Gobar Dan and ITC programs are successfully converting large volumes of crop residue and food waste into biogas and fertilizer. This has led to a measurable reduction in open field burning and associated methane emissions. From a financial perspective, the results are compelling. Biogas schemes generating $120 million in annual revenue and 15% additional income to farmers, as I've mentioned. The production of nutrient-rich biofertilizer, the return on investment is attractive. This case clearly shows the circular economy practices in agriculture deliver a triple benefit: significant climate mitigation through methane reduction, improved soil health, and tangible economic returns for both companies and farmers. When we combine this with the scale of India's agriculture sector, it becomes one of the highest potential areas for nationwide circular economy adoption. Global policy comparison. Let's look at how India's circular economy policies compare with the rest of the world. This chart shows the policy strength of major economies in 2026. The European Union leads with a score of 9.5 out of 10, thanks to its comprehensive circular economy action plan, mandatory recycling or recycled content targets, and digital product passport. China follows closely at 9.0 with its strong top-down circular economy promotion law. India scores a solid 8, a very respectable position, driven by NITI Aayog's 10 sectoral plans and the rapid rollout of extended producer responsibility, EPR rules, across plastics, e-waste, tires, batteries, and textiles. The key takeaway is that while the EU leads in regulatory ambition, India excels in scale and speed of implementation. Our strength lies in translating policy into action across a very large, diverse economy. Looking globally, the EU leads in regulatory ambition, but India and China excel in scale and rapid implementation. Key takeaway from global policy comparison: to summarize, the EU leads in regulatory ambition while India and China excel. India's real advantage is a combination of strong EPR enforcement and NITI Aayog's targeted sectoral plans. This positions us well not only meet but potentially exceed many global benchmarks in the coming years, especially in high volume sectors like plastics, textiles, and construction. Financial savings, the result, the financial upside is significant. Steel alone saves $12 billion annually and plus 18% GHG reduction. Financial savings versus GHG reduction potential, India is on track to achieve 39% reduction, closely mirroring global potential. The executive summary, the circular economy is India's most powerful climate tool. It offers a practical pathway to achieve significant GHG reductions while generating substantial economic value and creating millions of jobs. We have seen that construction, steel, and plastics deliver the largest absolute climate benefits due to their massive material footprints. At the same time, initiatives in textiles, electronics, automotive, and agriculture show that circular models can be applied successfully at almost every sector. Slide 31, my conclusion and recommendations. In conclusion, the circular economy is India's most powerful tool for climate action and economic resilience. We must prioritize construction, steel, and plastics for maximum impact. My recommendations are to further strengthen EPR enforcement, rapidly scale the Gobar Dan scheme, and provide more incentives for MSMEs to join the circular loop. Thank you very much for your attention throughout this comprehensive review. We have covered the scale of the opportunity, the positive climate impacts, the highest impact industries, real-world case studies with strong financial metrics, and how India compares globally. Based on our review, I recommend 3 priority actions. First, strengthen EPR enforcement across all covered sectors to ensure faster collection and formal recycling. Second, scale successful programs like Gobar Dan nationwide to convert agricultural waste into energy and fertilizer. Third, provide targeted incentives and technical support to MSMEs so they can adopt circular practices more easily. These steps will accelerate India's transition to a circular economy and help us build a greener, more prosperous nation by 2047. The circular economy is not just an environmental initiative. It is a fundamental shift in India's industrial growth model that can deliver both climate leadership and economic prosperity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael, for covering in detail, about each of the industry case studies and talked about that how that will impact the Indian economy in coming days. Really appreciate that. Before we start with the question answer, and we have many question answer coming in YouTube today, people go ahead and ask as many questions as you can in circular economy. Meanwhile, I'm running 1-minute video about today's session, which is contributed by, of course, Engineer Michael Katz, Rohan Pandya, and Kapitra. There is a summary of what we have learned till now. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. And I'm starting with question. Meanwhile, you can go ahead and scan the QR code and download our white paper, which has been produced by Kapitra, Rohan, and Engineer Michael Katz, documentation and the slides which they have presented. A summary of those in a book format is available for download from our WhatsApp channel. So go ahead and scan that, download it from our WhatsApp channel, and you may join that as well. Now, meanwhile, I am taking some question, and first question I am directing to Engineer Michael Katz, who just finished, and we will go that circular way, starting from person who has last presented. Of course, I have done little summary for him in the beginning, but he explained so well. So let me ask him the question. If circular economy is already delivering 20 to 25% IRR, Michael, and we 3 of us are from financial background as well, and billions in saving, right? That's the best part which Kapitra was talking about, that this West is gold. then what is that one real barrier which you think can be identified today? Yes, stopping most companies, which Rohan also might have seen several companies not taking that initiative so encouragingly. Yeah, stopping
I,
most of the company actually adopting to this scale, which Michael you think is possible today. So go ahead.
I don't think it's a today problem. It's been a problem for the last 35, 40 years. It's the perception of complexity, cost, but it's only a perception. And the unfortunate problem is that it's something in companies that must start from the shop floor all the way to the chief executive. It can't be driven from the accounting department or from process or project department. It is something that has to take a holistic view, and it takes education. Now, unless companies are pushed very hard by regulation, they're very reluctant to adopt anything because of the fear of cost and time. And I think the answer is that education must be for companies. They must be able to put themselves in a position where they employ people to assist them in adopting systems. And there's some models out there. I met a company years ago, an air conditioning supply company that specialized in hotels, and they had a very interesting model. They don't charge you fees; they charge you based on cost savings. So they come in and they know they can save you a lot of money. So they come in and say, okay, here's what we'll do. We will adopt these technologies for you. These are the minor changes you need to make in order to have your system more efficient, which will reduce the power consumption, extend the life of your equipment, and this is all quantifiable.
Indeed.
With a number.
Indeed.
So
Thank you.
I think
Thank you very much.
this is how we have to look at things, and hopefully we'll get some traction.
Indeed, indeed. And these are the real bottleneck which you highlighted so efficiently. Let me go to Rohan and let's take the brutal reality check with Rohan because he's practicing the same thing. Now, if most of the company, Rohan, are just switching to green inputs, which you highlighted with your pencil pen example, right, refill example, without fixing the inefficient system, how can a leader today, if you have to identify that leader in a company, quickly can identify whether their sustainability strategy is actually real or just an expensive illusion? What is your take on this?
So I would say it's not their expansion illusion or their sustainability initiative. It's just it has become mandated for these companies to do all these things. Their investors come because they are switching these inputs, their policies and all, and so they are doing it, right? They don't see that by changing some simple changes in their operations itself could achieve them to this level, could bring them to this level, right? So they don't see these things. Something is enforced to them, something is mandated to them that you have to follow this policy, you have to do this things, and so they are doing this. And to be honest, we have done so many reports, we have read many reports, but about 40 to 50% of this is just on papers, right? They don't think uh, if they do this particular step, if they follow this particular step, they will eventually get to a stage where they can achieve this level of impact in their operations itself, right? So, for example, which I already showed in my case study, right? So, by doing this simple change, the recyclability increases to 90%, right? But the industry leaders are not able to see this level just because they have been mandated by such policies that they have to do this steps, and they don't know the consequences, is what I think.
Absolutely clear. Thank you very much, Rohan, for that take. And I agree with you somehow that, just identifying a leader might not be helpful. You have to look the full process in with a bird eye view and then approach it. Now, let me go to Kapitra. Uh, so, Kapitra, of course, a lot of people have said very fantastic journey you have. We feel proud of you. Pushpak Mistry has some question as well, which I will be taking very soon. But before that, I have a question for you. If every household today watching this, okay, this episode of our FutureSCAPE session number 7, and they wanted to treat their waste with this 7th resource starting from tomorrow, if they decide to do it, what is that one simple habit you suggest they should adopt first that would create the biggest real impact in this segment to Indian 62 million or 65 million tons of waste problem? What is your opinion on that?
It's a very simple thing, these questions which are coming from adults also, which I'm, just was listening to the answers which Sir gave or Rohan gave, is like, I get these from children also.
Wow.
And and you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed that a third standard. I just took a session for the third standard of a very good reputed school in Navi Mumbai, and these were third standard grade children who and questions were not finishing. They were lined up in a queue to go back into the classrooms, and their questions were the same as adults. So when it came to, choosing what happens at home, it's very simple. Let's start by saying, what is something which has life in it and what is something which doesn't have life in it. It's common sense, it's simplicity, and then when we think what has life in it can rot and come back as soil, and what doesn't have life in it can go into the dry waste. It's as simple as that. Nothing, it's not rocket science, it's nothing, because that's how even, you don't believe over the last 8 years of our journey, this is exactly the same answer which I give to the children also, which they understand much better than the adults, and they do it. If any of the projects, the children are doing it with much enthusiasm rather than the adults. So circular economy becomes right from the start, from primary school itself. And I go and I am talking to even preschools about it, to parents and children, and I'm seeing that the children become more excited about it. So if it's a simple thing, it's about life and lifeless. What is life and lifeless? Wet waste and dry waste.
Wow. Awesome. Great approach there. Thank you very much for that. Of course, there are a few questions, Michael, for you as well. All milk producers like in India, Amul, or anybody can take these questions which has been posted. All milk producers like Amul and all companies have to initiate for a circular economy. Now, they are asking about all colors of producer, what they should be doing. Okay, that if they should start doing circular economy, how that will work out, and by generating scrap is not a waste, but it is a pure gold which you established, Kapitra, and that's what people are following with Rohan input there. By the way, we are seeing so many questions there. We can't take every question, but we will take one last question from Michael, and then we will close the session with introduction of our company and what we do. Michael, last question for you is that for mid-sized company, not a small one, not the large ones. Of course, large ones are the one who is sponsoring CSR initiative, but the mid-sized company with limited budget. Okay, which single initiative you think would deliver the fastest ROI today? You have already covered more than 7 industry for us. I want to know in next 12 months, any company wants to take an initiative, which will be that initiative which you will suggest that Indian entrepreneur?
Waste, looking at their waste, what they're doing with it, how they're producing it. And another tip of my hat to Rohan, the design of what they're doing. Can they incorporate other things? Packaging, how are we packaging our products? Can we package them more efficiently with more sustainable materials that might be less expensive, but also can deliver a message? There are so many different aspects. It depends on the company, but I believe it starts with waste and work backwards. You know, what if we're making it like this, it's producing X amount of waste, and is that waste recyclable? And if we made it out of this, would it be less waste and would it last longer? You know, how do we package it when we sell it? You know, what can we use? What's locally available? What's the supply chain of what we're producing in our company? How far away does it have to come from? Can we find it locally? Can we get services locally? Do we need to, you know, look at our supply chains, not just in the physical sense, but, you know, for everything from design to our accounting, to our management? You know, how do we streamline these things? How do we make things more efficient?
Awesome.
There's a multitude of things people can do that don't cost a lot of money.
Makes sense. There are two questions which are persistent here, and they are coming, and I will take those before we move on. There is no reward policy in companies towards circular economy. Rohan, what's your take? The government is not incentivizing it. Do you see in future we will have some kind of European Union kind of incentivizing stuff happening where companies can start talking to Kapitra and start recycling their waste? What do you think about that, Rohan?
But my perspective is different. Why there's a need for some incentives for that, right? If a company can, on its self, can have such an impact on its annual savings, why do you require some other incentives to put it into it, right? When you apply circularity framework in your own operations, I don't think so there's a requirement for other incentives to be put upon, or waiting for such incentives to come into your system and then doing some circularity initiatives, right? Once you follow this framework, your own company will save such a lot of amount of costs that you can achieve. You can get the incentives. You can forget about the incentives for this particular.
Okay, good. That could be a good approach as well. That look into your cost benefit by changing the design and looking into that 16% incremental increase rather than waiting for somebody else to come and help you. Makes sense. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
I just wanted to mention one very quick thing. I don't know, that's not my fault. One thing we covered on one of our sessions a couple of years ago, and I remember this slide very well, because it was an example of what can go wrong in big manufacturers. And Lego, they put into place recycling of their Lego blocks. But what they found was the cost to recycle was more expensive than it was costing, and had a larger carbon footprint than it was to produce the original item in the first place. And they spent several $1 million on this until they realized that that wasn't the way to go. So what is the way to go? They have to look at alternative materials to make their blocks that can be recycled and be able to perform the same thing. And that's the track they're on now, but they've been at it for a few years. But just to give you an idea,
QR code which was sent earlier, just scan that after the number. Sorry, Michael. Absolutely agreed with your point. You can complete. Please go ahead and complete. You were saying something.
No, I just wanted to mention, not everything is going to be, a success, but there has to be, again, getting back to my friend Rohan, it's in the design. So if we come back to that design issue and look at it from that point of view, then we're on the right track. Thank you.
Perfect, Michael. It's working. Now, thank you very much for that. Last question I'm taking, that this is for Kapitra. most of our waste, which is 95% plus of it, is managed by informal sector. Yes, and what can we do to make this sector little former, or give them, like gig worker today has got some kind of protection, right? Government is taking care of them, pushing the companies to give them insurance, at least the health protection. What about these people who are going in such a dirty places and fighting it out? Sometimes they are cutting their hand, complete hazardous situation. So what do you think, and what's your opinion on that, Kapitra?
We have to look at it from a human rights lens, the dignity part, right? What are we throwing in the waste is what is becoming part of their lifestyle and their livelihood. So what are we putting in the waste is what becomes of them, right? So every time we are even doing cleanliness drives in the mangroves, or the beaches, we look at diapers, we look at broken thermometers, or even hospital hazardous wastes which are there. So looking at each of this and looking at how it kind of affects the informal sector, we need to come from that kind of a perspective that it's us and us humans, how we are kind of uplifting each other, number one. Number two is that see, even within the informal sector, there are a different kind of there are different people, the ones who try to function in solidarity, like they want to be in solidarity, and they want to kind of do their own thing because of certain reasons. They don't want to be part of a trust or a collective, but they are people who are part of the collective. So it's a very deep discussion, actually. It's a very long answer, because I'm working with them and it's not been easy. For them to accept me was more important than me going ahead and saying, I won't accept you. They accepted me, and that's why I'm able to do this, create this whole model and work with them. So it's a lot of intricate kind of a very delicate space, and it's a whole discussion altogether, actually.
And we will have one day. We'll have one day to make them formal.
Yeah, there are it's very complex. So we need to discuss that separately.
100%. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming in and contributing. Let me complete what we do and how can we help. So if you are a professional seeking out a career acceleration in the field of sustainability, you can join us. If you are a company looking for compliances, investors, you can also approach us through our consulting and upskilling exercises. We can definitely help you. Now, we have come to end of our program. These are some our flagship program, like Certified Carbon Market Professional, CCMP. It's world recognized now, 24-week online program where we are helping people to practice in CCTS or European Union CTS system. Carbon Project Advisory, we have a team, Corporate Readiness Workshop, and ESG Leadership Summits. We do a lot of program for corporates today, and we help individuals as well. Anybody who wants to connect with us can scan this QR code or ping us on our WhatsApp or email ID. With that, we have come to end to our session, but I can't thank enough to today's speaker, starting with Engineer Michael Katz, who always spends some time with us on this last week of every month, and contributes to know-how of with several case study in the sector of sustainability. I also thank Rohan Pandya, who took out his time, prepared such a wonderful slide, took us through the journey of circularity with the eye of 9 R's, and specifically his redesign is going to stay for lot many people to look for next pencil with what kind of cover they are carrying. Okay, and thank you, Kapitra, for your journey, sharing which you did. People have related. You should go on YouTube and see the feedbacks people are giving and the summary they made from the speeches of yours, that what they can do to the society and yet reduce burden on planet Earth. With that, we have come to end to our session today. We'll see you again next week, every 11th and 27th. That's our days are for such kind of elaborative discussion. So see you there. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Sabak khair.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.